Hello to all the viewers from around the world. Welcome to the premiere of INSEAD MBA applications, where we'll uncover how to get into INSEAD. Without further delay, let's get right to it. There are lots of things to cover about INSEAD. INSEAD likes to call itself the business school for the world, and for a very good reason. Want to know why? Well, let's start with the main campus. That's in France. That's the Fontainebleau Castle. Then we have one in Singapore. There are primary destinations for the MBA programs. These are the primary ones for the full-time MBA admin. Then we have the Abu Dhabi campus, not to forget the San Francisco hub. INSEAD has three continents covered: Europe, North America, and then Asia, Middle East in the West Asia, and Singapore in the Southeast Asia. Not just this, it has partnerships with Kellogg, Wharton, and Siebes, reinforcing its position further in the global education. And as far as the program structure goes, INSEAD has surely nailed it. Two intakes, 10 months long, and an option to take the classes on other campuses. But appreciating INSEAD is not the agenda for the day, so let's look at what is. We have divided the whole session into three parts. The first part is statistical and driven mostly by quantifiable factors like your class profile, the values, and resume. The second part will have more abstract components that help create a picture in the mind of the reader, subjective factors, which are communicated through essays and the letters of recommendation. And I don't even need to tell you that INSEAD has all kinds of essay questions, from job description related questions to global experience related questions to motivation related questions. And the last segment will have the Q&A session. Fortunately, as you know, MBA Times allows you to join a group and ask the questions at any time, not just during the webinars. So this QR code down here serves as a way for you to join the group. You can scan it by pausing the video. For now, we are kicking off the session with the class profile. Class profile, as you must know, is just a way to get an idea if you would fit into the class statistically or not. As you can see, unlike American programs, we don't have much to work with here, but still, this class profile gives you an idea of the total number of students across the campuses. They produce nearly 950 alumni per year, split in Jan intake and August intake. You have an option to choose when to go. The average age is around 29 years, women at around 40% of the class, and work experience range is around 3 to 8 years. Another observation is the global diversity. With 110 nationalities, you can see the split by regions. 36% Europeans, 33% from Asia Pacific, 11% from North America, Middle East and Africa at 13%, and South America at 7%. Keeping this thought in mind, we'll now look at how to tackle the essays. As you can see on the screen, there are two primary categories that INSEAD has divided the essay questions into. The first category is job description related, and the other is motivation related. Each of these categories serves a certain purpose, and we will explore what that is as we move forward. As you can see on the note at the bottom, we will not be covering the short answer description questions, as we believe almost everyone has it in them to answer those. But in case you still have doubts, WhatsApp group will serve as a medium for you to have all of those questions answered. The QR code was shared already with the agenda. You can always go back in the video to scan it, but I know most of you would rather get rejected from INSEAD than go back and scan to ask the questions. So I'll share it once again right here, and you can scan it. We will move forward with the first category, the job description, and look at the first question that asks you about your career so far. If you have not scanned yet, you can pause and scan. We'll move forward. The question is perhaps the easiest question you will ever have to answer in the entire application, but you'll have to tackle this right. The prompt goes something like this: provide a summary of your career since graduating from the university, explaining the rationale behind your key decisions and career progression. Include a description of your current or most recent role, covering the scope of your work, major responsibilities, employees under your supervision, budget size, clients or products, and any notable results achieved. Few things to note here. They're asking about post undergrad experience. Mostly want to see if you have had leadership experience, what is the quality of your work experience, and the other stuff pretty clear from the prompt. Let's look at the framework we should follow while answering this question. The key to answering this question lies in following a few things. First and foremost, you need to focus on why. Why do you do the things you do? How intentional are you about those things? How well articulated are you? All of those things matter. Next, you need to find what your leadership type is and what you want your brand to look like for the application. Everyone has a way to brand themselves. When people work with me, we have a questionnaire and a session in which we try to find the person's brand based on the events in their life. But you can do so yourself as well. We will discuss this slightly more when we come to the resume, but for now, just know that the brand needs to stay consistent in your entire application, not just in your essays. Lastly, keep things aligned with your goals. Everything you do should be pointing you in that direction. Focus on your goals, and when you look back, it should be filled with things that are guiding you towards the goal. Kind of like that old fashioned movie dialogue. Don't you feel like everything in your life has been pointing you towards this? It's just the way to answer this question. As for the structure of the essay, we'll start with why the company. In your resume, you have already mentioned which company you work for. Now it's time to highlight why that company matters so much to you. Brand what that company is about, why that brand is aligned with your own. That's how you need to focus on this. So basically, like the initiation should be about why this company matters so much to me, what is the brand of the company, and how it's aligned with me. Next, you dive deeper into your role, not the title. The reason I say this is because title is something that kind of narrows down the scope of your work way too much. But sometimes people who have just worked in a project manager capacity, for example, can still have such an influence on the organization that their title cannot cover that. So highlight what you are for the organization. It's about your influence that matters. Then how many people are reporting directly to you? That's pretty straightforward. It's a number. Then why did you join this company? And you've already answered that. Then why did you join the particular clients and the particular products that you're probably working for? So maybe you're in a client focused role or you're in a product facing company. So why exactly are you aligned with those products? Why exactly do you want to work with certain kinds of clients? So for example, some people who have some inclination to join, let's say, the CPG industry, purposely take up the clients who have that industry available to them so that they can gain some experience, they can get to know certain people in the industry, they can know what's going on inside out. So that's one of the motivations many people take up those roles. That's completely fine. It's not a very strong motivation, but that's still fine. Then you think about the products. What kinds of products are changing the world? Are you kind of aligning yourself and your own brand with with that of the product? That also matters. So there is that intentionality component that kind of matters. So make sure that you talk about why your clients and why the products that you are actually working on actually matter more to you. Then you move on to talk about your accomplishments. So what accomplishments do you want to talk about, and why exactly is that accomplishment important to you? So for a rule of thumb here would be like, if you've only worked for one company, take two accomplishments. If you work for multiple companies, take one accomplishment per company, no more than that. So what accomplishment out of that one company matters so much to you that you're trying to show this, and that has to do something with your, motivation in some way, that the why remains aligned, that the reason I joined the company somehow is satisfied with that particular accomplishment. So that's why that matters to me. So making sure that this why is also aligned with the very first why that you came up with is important. So that is how you align things with your own brand. And then you have to align every single thing with your long term purpose in life. I'm pretty sure that most of you have some long term vision of doing something good with your life. If not, it's completely fine, but you must have some idea. Because if you're coming to NCR to get into all that student debt, you must be aware of what you're trying to do. So, what exactly do you see your purpose to be at this point in life, and communicate that by aligning everything with it. Moving on to the goals question. If you guys attended any of my business school sessions for the US schools, you must already know how to tackle the goals essay question. But for the rest, let's look at the prompt before we go head first into the framework. The prompt, as you can see on the screen, is describe your short term and long term career aspirations, including your target geography, industry, and function. How do you plan to bridge the gap between your current position and these goals? And how will NCR help you achieve them? Pretty straightforward prompt. Let's look at the framework. Let's understand the key to answering the question first. As usual, you have to focus on the why, just like we did before. Ensure that your goals are very specific. We'll see what that means. Focus on the depth of the resources. We'll also see what that means in a little bit. So let's look at the structure. So for your short-term goals, you have to be very, very specific. So you have to highlight the function, industry, location that you want to work in, the companies you want to work for. How feasible is your goal? What transferable skills you have that will help you achieve the goals? And then your choice of campus. Pretty simple and straightforward. Just there is a little bit of a trick there. So let's take management consulting industry, for example. So usually people join at an associate level function. The location, now that's dependent on you. So many of the international students who have gone to NCR have actually told me that Middle East is like the prime feeder location for them. They're going to the Dubai office of any of these companies, which are like the big three or the big four ones. So let's say the location is Middle East. You want to be in Middle East, so the French campus makes more sense. If you want to be in Asia, like the Southeast Asia, Singapore is also a good location to be in. So depending on where you want to end up, your location will be guided by that, and your campus choice will also be guided by that. So make sure you're keeping those things well aligned. And this is kind of really very specific to NCR. I did not say any of these things in the US business school because things are pretty straightforward there. Then you have the resources at INSEAD. You have to talk about what resources at INSEAD appeal most to you. There is not that much of a word limit, so I think one or two at max resources should be used to explain. And I said depth of the resources matter. So, what exactly is depth? So, start with who told you about what resource. So, XYZ person, class of whatever, told you about whatever resource you find useful to your goals. And why exactly do you think that resource is important? Why is that resource so, like, appealing to your goals or your long-term purpose in life? Is it giving you some benefit that you think no place else can do? So that's another thing. How exactly will you be using that resource? Now, the how is actually really important also, just like the why, because usually people don't know how exactly they're going to utilize those 10 months. So including the when makes the how easier. So who, what, why, how, and when. Always remember these things. And once you remember these things, everything becomes pretty simple to talk in depth about the resource. So focus more on the why and how, and you should be fine. Align everything with your motivation. How will these steps lead you to your long term goal in life? What exactly is your purpose as you see at the moment in life going to be? And make sure that everything is guiding you in that direction. So that is basically the factor of vector, that everything is pointed towards your purpose in life. And the long term goal is not about titles, so it doesn't have to be very specific like your short term goal. But you should know that this is your purpose in life, and any title you hold in the long term will allow you to meet that purpose. So that's basically the idea. A long term goal doesn't have to be as specific as the short term goal. You can just have a purpose in mind and communicate that I would like to be in a role that will allow me to serve this purpose. That's completely fine. Industry does have to be narrowed down, obviously. So, as you can see, the purpose of the section we just discussed was to see if you're intentional about the things you do. They're also trying to see if things are aligned with your purpose in life and if you found one yet, or at least somewhat clear on what it will be like. Speaking of a purpose, let's move on to the next subsection about the motivation essays. The first question is what I'd like to call a question on your background and personality. It goes something like this: give a candid description of yourself as a person and as a leader, emphasizing the strengths and weaknesses you recognize in yourself. Explain how you're actively working on your development, sharing key experiences that will have shaped you. Sorry, not that will have, that have shaped you. Providing specific examples where relevant. Now let's look at the framework as usual. We'll look at the key to answering the question first before looking at the structure. The motivation section is basically a form of psychometric test. But for the background question, you really do need to find genuine areas of work and how you discovered that weakness. I choose not to use the word weakness and rather want to ask you guys to use the term work in progress. It's more positive, progressive, and forward looking. The idea is to walk them through how you found your purpose in life and how, after finding your purpose, you found what was missing to meet that purpose. What events got you to this point that you want NCR to become a part of your journey to achieve your purpose? That's also another question that should come in your mind. These are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when answering the question. Now, let's look at the essay structure. So, you start with your value proposition statement. Value proposition statement, for those of you who don't know, usually refers to products in entrepreneurial world, that you're trying to sell a product or a service and you're trying to show what value it holds in the world. So similar things apply to your own personality also. That when you're trying to see that I am someone who is a candidate like this, so what exactly is your brand statement? What exactly is your quality statement? What exactly are you as a person? Why should they be proud to have you? These things should always be in the mind of an MBA aspirant. So it should take about 2 lines, value proposition statement. Then you talk about the events that led to finding your purpose in life. So usually, if you think about this, in Marvel movies, I think it was in the Into the Spider Verse or Across the Spider Verse, one of those movies, they use the term canon event. What was that one event that changed everything for you? How did you become the person you are right now, and how exactly that one event or multiple events gave you that purpose in life? So it can be from undergrad, it can be from your work experience, or maybe it was just a realization you had after having an observation of your past life. That's on you how you decide to take that, but basically, events leading to finding your purpose should not be that complicated. It should be very straightforward. How exactly did you find your purpose? What was that event? That's basically what it's asking. So, what was your canon event? That's it. Then Once you have found your purpose, obviously you're going to pursue your purpose if you found it. Generally, that's the tendency of problem solvers, that they find a purpose and they want to pursue that purpose in life. There are a few people who don't want to do that, but it's okay. Then why would you go to INSEAD? So once you have found your purpose, you're obviously trying to chase it. But in your pursuit of that purpose, you found that you lack certain things. What exactly are those things? Those are the weaknesses. Do you understand that? So when you're trying to fulfill your long-term purpose in life, how exactly do you see yourself not meeting certain things? Maybe it is a network. Maybe it is like that global perspective. Maybe it is something as simple as just formal business education. It could be anything. So what was that weakness? What was your area of work? And then connect that to what you will bring to NCR through your purpose, because it's understandable that NCR will give you certain things that will help you cover for certain weaknesses. But what will others get out of you? So there is some altruism factor involved as well, because this system has been created keeping in mind networking components. So how you network with others and how exactly you position yourself. So basically, the idea here is to make sure that you provide to the next generation in some capacity, and also the current one, like the people who will be joining you in the class. So how exactly you're going to be bringing some value to the class. And that completes our first question. The second question is a stress response question, which is basically a behavioral question that wants to understand how you respond to an environmental stimulus. I would call it a situational question if it were hypothetical, but this question is asking about a past experience. So, like, tell me about a time when. So, the question prompt goes something like this: describe a highly stressful situation you faced and how you managed it. What did this experience teach you about yourself and your interactions with the others? I don't need to explain the question prompt, it's very straightforward. So, let's look at the framework. As usual, we'll understand the key to answering the question first. You need to be able to honestly understand how you respond when you are stressed. There is a level of self-awareness involved in like two ways. First, you need to understand how this is affecting those around you, and second, how is it changing you as a person. That was a weird British accent. Anyway, uh, also, you need to understand, to be aware enough that you don't let it affect your work and day to day. Being functional, but still managing the stress in your own ways. Most people just say that they'll go to a therapist and follow what is being said, but the essay is not being written for a therapist, it's being written for you. So make sure that you write it about yourself. Another thing to focus on here is to know if you should involve others, yeah, into this or not. If they are somehow the part of the stress, for example, an abusive environment of isolation, resource scarcity, and unhealthy dynamics, obviously you will involve the others. How you manage that it affects them is on you. If you are just, if these are just people, who are becoming a collateral damage in the battles you're fighting yourself, that is where you need to be able to reflect on how you try to reduce the intensity so that the others who don't deserve it don't get affected. Also, it is a great place to show how others come through in the time of need. Keeping that in mind, let's look at the structure now. So you have to follow the SAR format, SAR. SAR is an acronym, it stands for Situation, Actions, and Results. Easier way of understanding this is basically you start with the situation. What exactly was the situation that caused the stress? Actions, what were your actionable steps or specific steps that you had taken to manage that stress? Bring others into the picture. What exactly happened? How exactly did you react? How exactly did it affect others? How exactly were the others involved or not involved? And what was the result achieved? Then you move on to highlight why that event was so important to you. Obviously, when you talk about the situation, connect your personality and your brand to that. Why exactly is that event so important to you? Why exactly is it causing so much stress? How did you try not to let it affect the others? It's very important that you understand what kinds of people you need to involve in your personal situations and what kinds of people you should not involve. So basically, that's an idea of testing whether you should get others involved or not. How do you get others involved if they are involved, and how does it affect them? So that's another thing to cover in this one. And then intentional steps you took to improve the situation. In case it started affecting the others, were you self aware enough to dial back? How exactly did you manage that situation? Those things are supposed to be covered in this, and it has to be answered in the SAR format, not star format. As you can now tell, the purpose of that section was to test what matters most to you, what priorities you have, how you have found your purpose, what others get out of you, and why you're the way you are. And those and this completes our essay section. Pretty interesting. Now we move on to the resume. Couple of things to remember about the resume. Actually, not couple of things. Just remember one thing: the acronym FCQBG, and we'll see what that is now. So we start with F. F stands for format. Your resume obviously needs to have some important sections such as your name, your email address, your phone number, and if possible, your LinkedIn profile link on the top. You can see that right there. This is usually followed by education, employment, and extracurriculars, also there. While there is no specific format, I still believe that only the most important sections should be kept. The space is limited, and you only have one page. Education must list your bachelor's and master's degrees, and a very short bullet on what your extracurriculars were during your time there. The purpose of this section is only to see if you will be involved in a similar capacity in the business school. Be intentional about this. If you've ever attended a business school session, you must know they say that the past activities are a great reflection of your future. That's what matters. And I got a lot of questions about how to write your employment if you're also a part time business owner. This is perfectly fine to create separate section. And I've already ensured to show that in the sample so you can see it when you get those samples. And I've also uploaded something on the left here where the person is, as you can see on the top, the name is some big boy. Then there is the address, the phone number, the LinkedIn profile. There is the education, work experience, entrepreneurial experience, and additional information as required. Moving on, C, which stands for consistency. By consistency, I mean the consistency in the format of your resume bullet points. The most popular industry format is the PARS format. PARS stands for Problem, Action, Results, and Skills Used. As the acronym suggests, you start by defining the problem you're trying to solve, be it marketing or engineering, anything you're trying to do to help your company succeed. Move on to define the actions you took to address it and what results came out of that and what skills you used. Focus on people skills because that's what matters for the MBA. PAR just stands for just as PARS format with the skill section removes. It helps shorten the bullets, but the skills are blended into the actions. RAS stands for results, actions, and skills, where putting results first helps you make the impact come first. And in case someone is skimming through your resume, they can get surprised as to how you managed to do that and makes them more curious. There's no preference for one over the other, but I must tell you that you should not mix them all in one resume. Only one consistent bullet format per resume: PARS, PAR, or RAS, or not and. When we move on to Q, which stands for quantification, this is most heard of in the MBA admissions industry that your bullets need to be well quantified. While quantification is usually more or less mandatory in the impact, it would not hurt to mention the size of the team you've led, for the particular incident to further make the bullets more powerful and more credible, of course. If you think you don't know how to quantify the bullet, that's completely all right. Just think about why you exist in the organization and how they're making money out of you, and thoughts will just start popping up. As it says on the slide, you can highlight the operational efficiency, revenue increase, sales, etc., with the numbers, percentage, cash, whatever, depending on what you have done. Just remember that you need to enter the currency of the country that you're applying to, which will be euro because it is France, or maybe like, Singaporean currency if you're applying for that campus. I can understand that because of the purchasing power parity and the converted amount, that this converted amount may look smaller in dollars. So you can accompany this with a percentage change in something so that it can show a greater impact. Moving on to branding. And usually I explain it with this phrase: a hero can rarely be a sage, and a sage can rarely be a rebel. All three have different personalities. A hero is someone who steps in and takes the responsibility for the people and solves their problem to rally people behind them. A sage is someone who shares the wisdom and helps solve people's problems, and people rally behind them because of their intelligence. And then the rebel is someone that disrupts the status quo by creating something completely different from what used to be. And their rebellious attitude and uniqueness attracts people who rally behind them because they were too frustrated with the status quo. So this is the way I kind of try to explain what exactly it means to be a hero, it means to be a sage, it means to be a rebel. Your brand is your own, and you're a business leader. But what kind of business leader? Are you a hero? Are you a sage? Are you a rebel? There are more in the leadership matrix. What kind of personality are you is entirely up to you, and how exactly do you show it consistently in your resume and your essay and the LORs is really important. And the reason I'm saying the consistency is important is because this is one thing that is tested in your essays and your LORs. So let's say you've branded yourself really well as a rebel in your entire application because you attended the session with me. So you've done a great job at branding yourself as a rebel of some sort. But now here's the problem: your recommender did not attend the session. So your recommender doesn't really know how to brand you. So just ends up branding you as some sort of a hero. Everything is positive, nothing is bad, but then it looks misaligned. So that misalignment is why many people will get hurt in the MBA admissions process, because admissions team will see that misalignment as either a misrepresentation or lack of self-awareness or anything negative. Nothing positive is coming out of that. So there is a chance you get rejected. So branding is kind of important. Moving on to the goals. This is perhaps like the most overlooked part, forgetting that your resume needs to contain transferable skills more relevant to your post MBA goals. Now, here's how you can modify your resume to meet those requirements. First, take the industry. Let's assume this is management consulting for now. Next, the function, then the target company, McKinsey, you can say, and the feeder location, Middle East. Once you get this information, Google the job description and you'll likely find it on their website. You can pick out the key skills from the job description and see if your bullet points from the resume match those and plug those right in. So you remember the PRS format, RS format, just in the skill section, you plug those in. Better way of dealing with this is to use generative AI tools and let them give you the overlapping keywords. So you're just using AI as a tool, not to create the resume bullets. Please do not use AI to create anything of your entire application. There is a chance you could get rejected. So using AI as a tool is fine. It's like just using internet, but using it to create the components of your application may not be taken well. And that completes our session for the day. And there is a little surprise for you. If you want a quick one-time personalized review of your application, MBA Times is providing the Hail Mary service is $250 per school. This is down from $500 at 50% off. So you can scan the QR code right there. It will take you to the page where you can request the code, and make sure that you use the code INSEAD MBA Times 2025. And there are bulk discounts available if you want to opt for multiple schools. But this is something that is limited to the people who are subscribed to the MBA Times Winter Edition. So if you've not subscribed yet, I would ask you to go to the website www.mba-times.com and subscribe to our free winter edition. That completes our session for the day. If there are any questions, I'll see you guys in the WhatsApp chat. For now, I really hope you guys have a nice day ahead.